Well, welcome to today's ITAM Kitchen, the place where we have a lot of great discussions on several different fronts. I have to also say, welcome to today's session. We're doing a special Saturday session because yesterday, if you were there, Mom was the word. I'm going to be honest. My name is Bill, Mr. Bill. I'm a recovering IT practitioner, hardware asset management, software asset management, configuration management. And I figured out after I was finished, it was a great session, by the way. I was talking to myself. There you go. And I didn't realize the microphone wasn't working. It's a bad thing. Okay, I see Mike. It's moving. That's a good sign. I say that because, you know what? I do this live. And I say that with heart and levity because it's all about having, you've got to figure out how to work through this, right? And that's what we're doing. Because the inherited playbook, as far as this global M&A integration, it's very, very critical. What we found the whole journey is being able to say how we're working through this. How do we work through our own adversities? How do we work through challenges? Because the hard scenario, here's what it is. We're trying to figure out, as a brand new IT asset manager, how do we triage? We did that on Monday, right? How do we triage for that next step? On Wednesday, we talked about how to stabilize. And then yesterday, I had this awesome session. You just can't hear a word because it wasn't recorded, about how we're doing the 30, 60, 90-day go-forward strategy. And being able to say, okay, how are we working through this? How are we making it happen, et cetera? And if you're here on Saturday because you couldn't make it, please put yourself in the chat. Absolutely. I'd love to see anybody live. I'm going to do this. It should be about 30 minutes. I think it's going to be good on that. I'm going to go over what I did yesterday. And this time you can hear me. I know we have fun. That's a little bit of a challenge. It's not a challenge, a little bit of a challenge for me to say, okay, it's a challenge for you. I want to see when is a great time to actually have our sessions and do follow-ups and things like that. Because this inherited playbook, we've been doing this for 4 weeks now. We've talked about hospitals with the CIO modernization without inventory. Last week, we were talking about repatriation. I think I said that right. Easy for me to say. About 75% cloud going to 25% cloud for cost reductions, right? And they want to go back on-prem. So you never know what some of these scenarios are going to be. But I say this because it's also being able to say, you know what? We have different scenarios because everyone says, oh, ITAM's easy. Just follow what you did to last customer. I've heard it for years. And what we found with this whole exercise, and we're just doing the discovery in 3 days, right, is they're all different. The discussions have been wildly entertaining on several different fronts. And I say that because I want you to also be able to understand and have that realization. Again, if you're in chat and on there and you're seeing us live, it doesn't matter. Go to YouTube if you want to, at ITAM Kitchen. I'd love for you to do ITAM Kitchen and connect up with it. Actually, I'll put something up there in a second. Actually, I'm not. I'm just going to put this at ITAM Kitchen, ITAM Kitchen. And just subscribe. Absolutely. That'd be doing a favor for me as I go through this. But let's talk about this M&A acquisition. What happened? Because what we have is a global service integrator. Actually, what they call is a GIS, right? Or GSI, a global service integrator, that they had a U.S. firm purchase a European firm, and they're bringing it together, right? And they have very specific requirements because the CTO wants 90 days unification. Yeah, we all love these unrealistic expectations, right? But it's being forced by the board. I get it. The CFO wants savings. How can we synergistically bring this to play, right? The European leadership says they're just being steamrolled by the U.S. because they just want this to put in place. It's not unusual with a merger and acquisition. You're going to feel like that, right? You're just not part of the team. You're just trying to contribute, right? Legality, there's contracts everywhere. We're trying to figure out how to we already have a backlog now where you can combine forces and make that happen. In the ITAM and SAM team, overwhelmed is an understatement, right? Trying to figure out what's there, how we're going to work together, the collaboration. I'd say probably the other team doesn't even have one of the teams is probably lacking and slacking. That's not unusual, but I say that being constructive, right? Because when we start looking at the bigger picture, we started on Monday to say, okay, how are we looking at this? Let me go to the board. Because I said, if we're going to start this, we have to look at really around governance, and it all starts around a kickoff meeting. When you look at the kickoff meeting, you identify the people, the process, technology, all from the key stakeholders. You're starting right here. And from here, determine, okay, who needs to be involved? That's initial kickoff. It's like, okay, who else needs to be part of this? You have two different teams, duplicity, and you're trying to eliminate that. And that's where savings are going to come from. Because at the end of the day, the business can't stop. It's quite critical, right? So we talk about IT, finance, services, management. There's more than that, right? And business service can be across the board on the consulting side. Absolutely. So you have two different teams. You're trying to move this forward. So let's move the board a little bit further. Because when you start to assess what's happening, you look at the people, the process, the data, the results, look and say, how are you aligning? How are you moving forward, right? And I say this energetically because you need a lot of energy to do this, and some people, you're going to do it on the side. This is a full-time job, and we're going to talk about organizational change management because they're the ones that are going to help keep us in line. You have program managers, organizational change managers, like, well, we can't afford to do it. You cannot afford not to do it to have the right team members involved. But you have some different regulatories. Again, we went outside of U.S. borders. So we have European Union activities we're dealing with regulations, privacy acts. We have new things as far as how things are being scanned. Look at the new laws just now coming out now. But we also have customers. How we align our customers, make sure we have zero impact there, right? How do we look at the environments? What type of contracts do we have in place with our customers as well as with our vendors? How are we putting that in place, right? Because we need to further refine the scope. That's why that's in red right here. We did that the other day. When you start looking at the bigger picture, how are you working this across? And I say this because when you start pulling us together, you're really trying to identify for the next 90 days. Again, we're going to be doing a 90-day session. That's what today's about. But you're going to start saying, okay, what do we look at from a high level? What are you going to assess? What do you assess against the scope? Environment, contract assumptions, what's in place. Make sure you have those assumptions documented. You have a business case, right? You need to review how the acquisition happened. What was the real reason for it? What's some of the constraints we saw potentially in the savings, right? You need to make sure you're aligned on that. And this same goes true with any type of project. Same thing. How'd you get the business case to come across? Again, we talk about stakeholders. We're coming back to that. You see a repeated theme here. What's your mission statement? How are you identifying some of the risk? Where's the scope coming in? What type of schedules and milestones are you working with? Make sure you're aligning, right? We start to gather this information, those key stakeholders. And keep in mind, as you're doing it, what we also talked about on Monday is also saying, okay, who are we talking to? Go a little bit further here. Oh, that works really well. With your team, IT, I put infrastructure, cloud, service desk, data center, could be asset management, depending on where they sit in there. And that might be part of finance. You have different tools individuals. You have duplicity here, right? So you have to go subcommittee because organization, this is employees, this is 10,000 employee organization. They're scattered around in different parts of the globe. They're billing for customers because the thing is, again, we cannot impact the business. We cannot impact the business because if the customers aren't happy, they're not going to pay. And if they're not going to pay, it means we don't have a business, which means we cannot employ the employees. That's a problem, right? But when you start thinking about this, that was one part. Talk about billing, in the finance team, billing, fixed assets, accounts receivable, maybe some compliance report from SOX. And there's some additional parts you can add in there as well, right? I'm quickly going through it to keep us on point here. It's a Saturday, and I realize our time is precious. But at the same time, I want to make sure we get this output here, because when you start looking at like the procurement, the product service catalog for the hardware, the software, the virtual environments, right? The vendors you're working with. This is important how those approvals work because your procurement of both sides needs to also be aligned. It's like, well, Bill, that's a procurement issue. That's not asset management. Okay, absolutely agree. But if you don't know how those are working together, you don't know what's coming on your plate. I'll be brutally honest. And that's a problem. Okay? Vendor management, same thing. Contracts, the customers, the vendors, the others. Understand some of those nuances happening between both organizations. Maybe there's some additional requirements you have for safety and security, and you have agreements in place because, again, international law. I'm going to move the other side. Screen doesn't want to, I will. Services delivery team. This can get insane, right? The equipment, the resources, the different environments you're working with, how it's being reported, right? And you're not even worried about HR side. HR is where you GDPR and people, you're doing this as well. Again, everyone has a subcommittee they're working with to help you. And notice I've got OCM in a big box right here because organizational change management is critical to what you do. And I say this in a constructive tone because when you start looking at the bigger team, this morphs. You easily could have 200 people involved with this. And the purpose of asset management, software asset management, configuration management, you're not managing, you're part of the team. And you've been invited in the room. This is some people never had the opportunity to be in a room like this. And for me, I say, I'll jump at it. I'll also give you insight. I talked about this a little bit yesterday. If you've not done anything like this before and you're fearful of it, don't go in the room. Unless you have a coach or have someone actually provide that. Because if you're unable to be in that room and ask that question, you're going to get chewed up and spit out real quickly. And that's going to be a credibility problem for you. I'm just being honest, right? There's a lot of folks out there that are taking the job, they get the certifications, don't understand how to work them, how to constraints, don't understand anything like this. This is a senior type of scenario. Senior. You've got people with 20 plus years of experience can't even deal with some of this, right? They just never done it. So find someone who's skilled that'll be able to do that, because having them lead the way is going to help you tremendously. You may just hire those for this, bring this together. That's great, make it happen, because that's what's going to be your insurance policy. And I want to just bring that back. I was talking to Rob a little bit offline yesterday. It's like, okay, we need to make sure we emphasize the talent you bring for this, the skill set you need. It's not about, okay, how can I pass an exam? No, this is the exam of life. This is not an exam on a piece of paper or virtual, right? This is not about saying who else can't see your answers. This is being able to say, how can I collaborate and work with others and be creative? And because you're going to have things come up that you're going to get blindsided by. If you don't like getting blindsided, you're in the wrong role for this. I'm just being honest. I'm going to be candid, right? I'm a coach and I'm paid to push. I have a whole coaching organization. That's what the co-op's about, right? I will tell my fellow peers in there to say, you're the wrong person. Go, really? It's like, unless you see X, Y, and Z, that's what I coach them, right? X, Y, and Z, you're unable to make headway. They go, oh, didn't realize that. I said, I get it. Are you ready now? No, I'm not. It's like, are you ready to raise your hand and tell management? It's like, I'm not the right person for the role. You need to. And it's going to be painful. But they'd rather know now than find out after the fact when something goes really crazy, get upset with you, and figure out, okay, what just happened? And Amy brings someone else in on top of it. And on top of it, you're released. I'm just going to be honest. That's what happens with things like this. People get real cantankerous. I want to use that because there's a lot of contention. Everyone's stressed. We're trying to make this happen, right? And how do we move this forward? That's important. And GDPR is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, so let's go on to day 2. Let's talk about what happened. We talked about stabilization on Wednesday. Stabilization, we started saying, okay, it's scoping this in. OCM's helping put this in place, make sure the notification goes out, make sure the entire organization's aware. Identify, you're going to have additional team members join in. It's like, oh, I need to be part of that. And you're going to have management decide, okay, are they part of the team or are they not, right? It's not your call. And you're not running it. You're just trying to be a contributor, right? I'm just going to tell you I'm giving this insight because this oversight is going to help you with your role as you move forward. And that's extremely critical, right? You got different device types. You're going to look at regulations, customer, people. And I think for this use case, remember, we chose we're going to work on internal IT first, or one of the business applicants. Actually, it's procurement. We're going to work on procurement and work with these different stakeholders with that because it had the biggest reach and depth. Sometimes procurement does that because how you're procuring information, how you do services, how it's being paid for. I don't care that it doesn't matter if it's internal IT, it can be the services team, it can be leadership, et cetera, your different stakeholders, your vendors also. This is a good test run. It also provides that consolidation. That's why we're looking at that. So stabilization, let's continue on here. Oh, okay. Sometimes I don't know what this is going to do. I think I'm good. Okay, so am I here? You can see it? Okay, cool. I just want to make sure you can see it. There we go. Sometimes I never know what the screen's going to do. It happens. It's IT. That's why we have jobs, right? Okay, so different groups and individuals. We kind of brainstormed on this, right? We said sales, finance, HR, ITSM, billing, consulting, procurement, HR, finance, vendor. These are all key team members. Again, as a management software manager, we're down here, but honestly, we're in the room with everyone else. So you need to show up because it's extremely important you show up. Because when you start looking at that, you further refine the scope, identify what's out there, what's not, get some of the metrics and KPIs as you look at operational, right? You start understanding also the OCM, what needs to happen from all the team members here, right? And if there's anybody else to put in there, we'll get them up to speed. Don't worry. But being able to say, identify, okay, where the awareness comes from, that's organizational change management. If you don't know what that is, if you've never been part of this, realize that's extremely critical, right? I'm actually going to go a whole session just on that within my own community, within the co-op, talk about organizational change management, because I realize from this, we don't talk about nearly enough. It totally gets screwed over because they worry about program management. They don't look at organizational change management, right? But we have social activities. We said social activities and milestones here. We have our milestones, but this is also where it pays to play. And what I mean by you work hard, play hard. Everyone's doing their best, right? You have a lot of things happening. It's also important to have some social time, even if it's a virtual beverage or something like that, beverage time or what social activity, is being able to say, okay, get to know the people you're working with a little bit better. It's going to help things go much easier. Making sure I'm on the phone screen. Okay, cool. I see volume. That's good. Okay, yeah, we're working. Because as you do the metrics and governance, even a high level, we're going to roll up our sleeves and get in the weeds as much as we can, because that's what's going to help drive our executive support. Because once we understand this also provides alignment with the executives. That's why our messaging is there. And then when it comes to, I think this is it, our vendor agreements. We talked about, okay, vendor agreements, we said, we're doing procurement, right? Hardware, software, office supplies, could be building accessories. And what I mean by that is air conditioning, facilities. It could be the power grid coming in. You never know, right? Or you have IT, IoT devices, it could be other devices. It'd be cloud in here, right? All sorts of things in that product catalog also, because we're talking about procurement. What's new, what's maintenance, what's end of life, what's sustainable. Look at the big picture. This is what we're talking about, stabilization. And as we do this, okay, where's this really going? Where's this going, right? But this also helps us with our next step for our 30, 60, 90-day plan. Okay. Cool. There. I think I'm there. Yes, this is it. Okay, cool. Sometimes you never know what you're going to run into. It happens for me too. The 30, 60, 90-day plan for this whole effort. We're doing great so far. Again, I wanted a little bit of redo because I messed up yesterday. It was on me totally. Sometimes you never know what's going to happen. But I want to make sure you had the visuals outside. So when you talk about 30s, right? The 30-day, the 30s, there you go. 1930s. Well, we're about to be there. We'll be there in a couple of years. It's amazing how quickly time flies. In the governance, right? 30 days. What are we going to start looking at? We're going to start looking at our area. Look at our area specifically. The governance is coming to play. This is the higher governance. You're also going to govern it with the peers on the other side of the other side of the water in this case, right? The peers in both organizations. Because you're going to want alignment of your asset management, software asset management, and configuration management. I'll throw FinOps in there too, depending upon who's functioning like that. Hopefully they are. If they're not, okay, it's time to pick up the pace and we'll make it happen. But you also can start the baseline. The baseline starting to happen there. Because when you start getting the baseline and around the processes and identify what's documented, what's not, it also tells you your metrics. It tells you your maturity, organizational maturity, as well as your data maturity, right? Because when you start understanding the handoffs, how it's occurring or not occurring, and trust me, I just came from a big GSI, and they were horrible in this side internally, horrible, right? I was just astounded. It's like, oh my gosh, guys, you're so large and you're so undefined. It was crazy, right? Because in this 30 days, we said, okay, we're going to identify stakeholders. You already kind of know that. We've gone through that a couple times already. And change management, you're going to focus on that. Because you're talking about change management. You say configuration too. We'll work with the products when you get up here, but more change management, how things being applied internally, whether it's applications, whether it's services, business applications. You could talk about what's happening for the devices and servers, right? Cloud, on-site, prem, virtual, wherever you want it to be. You also look at your contracts. Start looking at the renewals. Identify and help prioritize that. That's what you're looking for here. Okay, what's going to be the biggest pain? What's the biggest bang for the buck? When do you need to be aware as well? Because what's happened here, when you have a merger happening like this, the audit police are coming around. It's like, well, they don't do that anymore. They absolutely do. All you have to do is look at the press. You've already been in the press. The Microsofts, the Oracles, whomever, right? SAP, exactly. Is like, okay, we're going to go through an audit. You don't have nearly enough chaos going on. We're going to add to your mix. You look at that. And it's like, so that's contracts. Be prepared for an audit in there. 30 days. You also have HR because we need to figure out how we're bringing that data together. It's not your task. We're a receiver of that information. Or the product catalog. How are we working with the team to say, we need to consolidate. It's quite important, right? Okay, so let's flip to the next screen. 60 days, because we're doing good. We're down to the last 7 minutes. I'm loving it. It was perfect. 60 days. We're starting that consolidation. We start here. Now we give an update. How's it looking? Do we need a little bit more time? Which, beware, they're going to say there is no more time. Like 3 days ago. Perfect. I know, it never happens, right? Your metrics and KPIs between the two organizations, you're going to start saying, here's what we can do and here's what we can't do. Here's our capability. It also provides you kind of a little bit of direction, whether it's a gap or whether it's something new, doesn't matter. And it's like, how could that, because that provides your alignment. We talk about governance here, that's being reformed for here because the governance is what's helping this discussion as you're governing, because that's where your clarity and assumptions are coming into play. Clarity and alignment. I've got words all over here, right? It also is going to tell you, okay, is it possible, is it not? We thought we could do this. Mr. Executive, I know you told the board that. We're not even going to be close. So he's going to ask the question, how close can we get? Right? They already realize it's impossible. For them, it's impossible. But they're counting on you individually to say, what's the reality? What can we actually get done within some time frame? And that's important, right? Because we start aligning the tools, the outcomes. Can't read my writing. What's being captured and managed. You understand what's happening there, then you can determine those next steps. You did a good job reading my scribble there. That's great. 90 days. What have you achieved so far? Identify, okay, what have we achieved? What's outstanding? Identify issues or additional constraints or additional team members you add into it, right? You got some decisions to make. Again, we go back to the governance, OCM, change management. How are we applying this? Because we're trying to provide congruency between it, and that alignment's quite important. And also the team members, who's being involved, because you have a duplicate role on both sides. Somebody's going to get the short straw, or you're going to have a short straw from the role, then you have a new role, right? Maybe you're a manager now, or you can become an analyst. I don't know. It's going to vary. Everyone's going to, but it's also about your contribution. That's going to be key, right? Don't be a show hog. Don't be a show off or a resource hog on this side. Identify and be a contributor. That's going to be extremely key. And other next steps. again, those gaps. How are you working this through? How are you driving that? So I give this 30, 60, 90-day log approach because there's a lot that happens in a very short period of time. I just went through that in 25 minutes. There you go. It does not happen that quick. I'm going to be brutally honest. It does not happen that quick. But what I can be honest with you, I mentioned this a moment ago. If you're not able to do it, speak up early and say, or raise your hand and say, I need help. That's the most important part because of all the scenarios we've done in the inherited environment playbooks for the last 4 weeks. This is probably the most complex one of everything, even more than a hospital, because you have a lot of different dynamics happening. You have a lot of people involved. It's like, well, I do in hospitals too. Now, hospital scenario, not like this. Because if you're dealing with the international part, you have a lot of cultures you're trying to deal with. You have a lot of dynamics and expectations, and as well as egos. I'm just going to say egos are in there too, right? And that's the important part. This is things you're never going to learn in training unless you've been hands-on and work within the trenches. So when you work in the trenches, you see this like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize what I was getting into. Welcome to society. That's what I'm talking about. So let's figure that out, figure out how to help you move forward. Now, when I say this, I also say sincerely, as we come to the closure of this effort, I did this in 30 minutes versus an hour. I was writing on the sky. I'll leave the other one out there. You can watch it. It will just, if you can read my lips, it's doing great. But I say this sincerely. I've been part of services world, outsourcing services world for 30 years. Figured that out just a couple of weeks ago, actually. 30 years I've been in the services world. I've been doing asset management actually a little bit longer than that. I just didn't realize I was doing asset management, and it's like all of a sudden it added up. I've been doing asset management since like 1990. I was doing it in college. I just didn't realize what I was walking into. There you go. Some things you just never know. But I say this type of environment, it's not about just cranking the technical widget. It's not about looking at process. It is about working with people. It's about understanding the handoffs between each other, helping each other out and moving forward. It's not about taking on more than you can, but it's being able to assist and say, you know what about this? In these scenarios, these what if scenarios is what's going to help you succeed, as well as the relationships in general. So as you think about this, when we come to a close on this inherited environment for this M&A acquisition, right? Realize maybe you have a great ego. That's awesome. Your ego is not going to help here. It's not. I want you to be sincere and say, okay, how can we be better? How can we be that better person? How can we work collaboratively with other peers to say, we'll figure it out. How can you be that rock? That's the most important part here. I know folks with the irrelevant with the platform. We got big gorilla platforms out there. You have Merger, and you can have Flexair, ServiceNow, whomever, right? Avanti, take your pick, right? You can share well, trying to convert, etc. There's all sorts of scenarios, right? And then unscripted. I mean, I'm just talking strictly off the cuff. If you don't think about this objectively, you're not going to go anywhere. Because when they find out that you can't do it and you didn't step up to say you can't do it, they're going to do one of two things. Put you in a different role or potentially let you go. I don't want you to be in that scenario. That's why we're doing the inherited playbook. They have different scenarios. So I say that in these final moments to say, you got this, you do, but you also, if you're going to have this and you're not ready for it, speak up, raise your hand, say, I get it. I just had some insight. I'm concerned. Be honest with that, right? Be honest and say, okay, we'll get through it. But yeah, this one's going to be a heavy one and it's going to impact me in other ways. Give everyone a heads up. Give everyone a heads up because it's also going to help you in your sanity. Because when you start understanding and be real, people are going to trust you more. When people trust you more, they're going to want you in the room more. And this is an opportunity to be in the room. When you're in the room more, it also means, okay, I've grown, I'm thriving, and move forward, right? But I will also say, when you realize you're being honest with yourself as well as honest with others, when you go home at night, you said you've done your best. You're ready to move forward. That's all I can ask for you. So as we wrap this up on the ITAM kitchen for this inherited CIO or inherited environment playbook for this global M&A integration, and trust me, we've just hit the tip of the iceberg here. Think about how you can work within these type of constraints. This is real. These things are not going to you don't teach except in the real world. This is where scar tissue happens. I've been through plenty of these, right? Plenty. But you also at the same time say, okay, how do we work through this? And I've been able to guide customers through this. That's where I come and my specialty is. I love this type of stuff. As you can tell, I just scribble, and it's more just, well, sometimes I scribble, you can't read it, but that's different. But when you're able to guide in that next step, I realize, okay, that's my skill. That's what I love around people. That's why I do this. So with that, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hey, things happen. You got the extra bonus, seeing this a little bit on Saturday. It got a short version, which is even better. And on Monday, we're going to do a recap of everything we've done in the last 4 weeks. Rob's going to be back. He'll make that happen. And at that point, we're going to wrap up the entire series for this part, and we'll continue something else on Wednesday. More to be disclosed on Monday. But outside of that, have a great weekend. I look forward to seeing you. And thanks again for helping support the ITAM Kitchen. And again, if you have not subscribed at ITAM Kitchen within YouTube, please do. My gosh, it's important for you. I keep hearing all the time, yeah, I see it out there. It's like, have you seen it? And, yeah, I love it. Great. It's like, connect for me. Connect. That's the only ask I have. Outside of that, if you're going through something like this, you're struggling with it, be part of the co-op. That's at joinitmc.com, joinitmanagementco-op.com. And that's also where we're able to say, what's that next step? Thanks for everything you do. Look forward to seeing you, and I'll talk to you then. See you on Monday. Bye.